Hello, everyone. It's so nice to join you all again for another episode of Twin Talk. I'm just so happy to be back in Canada. It's summer, it's beautiful outside, and I'm so excited to be joined with a special guest today who I met recently, and hopefully we'll get to talk about how we met. But I'd like to introduce you all to someone who's extremely special. You'll probably get a chance to go and find her on LinkedIn and add her, and you will see how her peers, people like myself, we're so lucky to have someone like her in our network. She has a wealth of experience that she brings to the table, excellent educational background, but most excitingly, it's what she's bringing it all into and what she's working on and what she's building now. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Jelena Savic-Brkic to the Twin Talk. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you. I am blushing. I'm humbled. And thank you very much for all the kind words and for having me on.
No, it's our pleasure to be able to see you again and to be able to have this session. See, the ultimate purpose of Twin Talk is I'm actually myself a lifelong learner. I love learning from people. I just came back from the United States where I was speaking at a digital twin conference, and I told the organizers, I told them that this was a master class, and it's not that we don't all need refreshers 100%. We all need refreshers, but when you're surrounding yourself with people who are innovative, with people who are, working on bleeding edge technologies, that's one thing. The other side of the story is how much they have also sacrificed to be there, how hard they've worked, what lessons they've learned along the way. And when you work and surround yourself with people like that, you realize you're not on an island, you're not alone. And as a founder, sometimes it can get very lonely. So to have these conversations, to surround yourself in these uh, ecosystems is it's absolutely imperative for your growth, for your emotional growth as an entrepreneur, and that's probably one of the reasons that you and I met is because we met at a smart cities conference. So before we get into that, the the juicy news on how we met, um, let's quickly take you know get a better understanding of you know your background and how much that's going to influence the direction where you're taking things now. So we could start with your educational background, and as an architect, how you progress through your career in an environment like Toronto. So if you'd like, you could walk us through your background from an educational perspective, and then your career.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. I am nothing but an architect. Like honestly, I'm not your typical architect. I'm actually engineer, old school engineer of architecture. That program, as per my knowledge, doesn't exist anymore. But I s- I did that because my dad was in civil engineering, and that's my second education. I actually started in tech and telecommunication back in late '90s. Done some software programming, old school data DMSing databases in relation to what the internet is now. That's what you see now. You have rise of digital data analytics in relation to the AI. Um, I think my career was different because I was very much influenced by my father, who was in large scale civil engineering. And I always wanted to be bigger and the better, like, building bigger and better things. And I started in planning first, then went for architecture, spent a lot of time in execution. And what I've done, what I figured out like over 20 something years of doing this, it's like I've done a unique thing where I've done everything end to end, which later on in a career you realize that people get stuck, or people just prefer to be one sphere of this like lovely thing of building something from a scratch, right? And I've learned a lot about like a lot of different things from the best in the industry. I think I was really lucky in a way that I really wanted always more. and position myself to the next project where I want to go, right? Was it like next LRT line, next tower, whatever is the next best thing that I wanted to do in my career. And I wanted kind of like to have it on my resume for me, not for everybody else, which made me very unique in a way. Um, and then by moving to Canada in 2008, I had an opportunity to work on the North American market. So I already worked in Saudi market, European markets. Um, every professional who is worldly, who experience different cultures or built in different cultures, you learn different policies, international code versus Canadian code versus US codes, legal aspects of it, and finance that they are more important than anything else. And when you put it all together, I think I can say for myself that I'm very interdisciplinary. I am not an architect. I'm not an engineer. I'm almost like an AI that we are making, that it can really quickly like go and elevate yourselves on 50,000 feet. You can go in the gutter, fix the problem, whatever it is, and then you can go and elevate yourself to 50 feet. So being interdisciplinary and changing scale requires a lot of different things that you have to do for your career in order to gain that perspective and to gain that experience.
I love it. And, it's something that you touched upon. You were very influenced by your father, who was an electrical engineer. Myself as
Civil
well.
engineering.
Civil engineer. And myself as well. My dad's an aeronautical engineer. And I had this infatuation with airplanes my entire life. And I was like, how can I make my dad's life easier? Today with digital twins, my dad's like, okay, why didn't we have this when we were fixing airplanes? It would have saved a lot of those trips in minus 40 temperature, up the plane, down the plane. You in the around the mid 2000s, like 2011, 2015, you were working on some interesting projects in luxury retail, etc. But specifically in aviation in the Middle East. Can we learn more about that?
So I worked actually in aviation projects like here and mostly in North America. But and I work actually a lot of like interesting military projects that I wouldn't be able to tell you anything about. But I love aviation. Aviation is kind of like my own passion. I did wanted to be a pilot when I was younger.
Nice.
I even enlisted in a military school against my parents' wish, which would be an aberration because like I'm a everything, like I'm an anti-rule person, right? But very regimented and strict. And it's funny that you're saying that without knowing who I am. My husband is in aviation. My husband is aircraft maintenance engineer. And there was this fascination with me wanting to be a pilot and that I always liked transportation. And there is something humbling about designing, like about a design and work on air and rail projects. It's just moving people. There's something really awesome about it. Like even my graduation thesis back in the day was the whole airport and the runway and the terminal and the
Oh
control
my
tower.
God, that's so cool.
I was so obsessed with it. Like, and I know when I moved to Canada, I approached, there was an amazing woman at Scott's Architects and Associate, a partner there, and they've done a Terminal 1. And I was like just obsessed, like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I just want to do airports.
Yeah, that's your jam, exactly.
Yes, yes, yes.
I
But then
love
it's
it.
like, oh, if I can have a, 5-tower mixed use neighborhood next to the airport, that will be ideal, right? Because once you start doing large scale projects, it's a very different animal. It gets under your skin, and
Yeah,
that's where processes, efficiencies, everything comes from. And that's who I am. I'm really a
a-
process driven person. Yeah.
absolutely. Because then you understand, okay, if we could do, water conservation here, waste management there, drive eco sustainability, why not do it for the area around it as well? I completely get that because that's the problem solver in us that really want to be like, okay, we don't want to just focus on one small project when we could do this and it'll help so many more people. This brings me to when you got your master's in architecture at the University of Toronto, you got your academic certification there. What was it a specific uh, company or organization that you felt like I'm doing this for that, or was it like, okay, let me get this and then I'm going to see what's out there in the market? Like, what was your thought process transitioning from academia into the career that you had?
So I don't remember actually transitioning to academia to career because it was many moons ago. I've only had to do as a foreign trained architect because at that time there was no reciprocity agreement.
Mm,
Back in Europe, I could be a planner and architect, and I could actually sign off like a small structural engineering projects. And when I moved to Canada, there was no reciprocity agreement, so I had to do kind of like my re-education. I had to go through the system in order to get my license. So it's funny, like at that time in the office, there were people who just came out of the school, and we were taking our license exams at the same time. Um, I didn't see. I only took professional practice course at U of T, and I was actually surprised how practice wasn't connected to the reality of what
yep.
it is that we do, right? Especially coming from a large scale projects from Europe and then coming here and hoping that I'm going to do that. I'm going to be honest, I don't know anything to do with a stick built frame, wood frame, housing system in Canada or North America. But mass timber, hybrid structures, like anything that it needs to go higher and bigger in a volume, that is kind of my jam. And I feel that education really needs to change in order to set new generation up for success. I've seen this in dialogue. I've seen this in Casian. We have a lot of new grads that would just crush their dreams by giving them, you know, basic tasks. Either they're focused on design, like, make it pretty. Rendering at that time was a big deal where we would put the new grads to work on. Without understanding it's like bits and pieces and everything what it goes to. There is a lot of regulation, there is a lot of rules and policies that we need to follow,
Yeah.
and we don't educate students in a school about that. Like, how regimented actually architecture is. Great. Architecture is like open-minded. Architecture can be a part of a social construct. We create these spaces that people don't even know why they interact with,
Yeah.
but at the same time there are a lot of rules, and I think that we don't teach younger generations about the rules and regulations and everything. And just the fact that you're a regulated profession, so as someone like me who came from a different um, jurisdiction,
Yeah.
you cannot just jump in somewhere and build somewhere else. Like even when we work, like when I work at Casian, we had office in Qatar. When you work on Qatar projects, you need to have a local company, understanding the business, understanding the regulations, understanding the law. Because once you get your stamp, you're a walking liability, right? And I think we
Absolutely.
don't we don't teach we don't teach that in school, and we should.
We should absolutely, because there's a lot of exposure, liability, and accountability that is connected to your name as well as the firm that you're working for. But when it comes to, like, for example, net zero, um, how is it that in is it similar around the world, the concept, the way to approach it from an end-to-end design and delivery perspective, or does it vary, and is there any kind of direction for the industry right now when it comes to net zero strategies?
It's very convoluted. When I came from Europe here, I was really disheartened how, there is the cost control. Everything is about cost control, but for wrong reasons. And then sustainability is addition to it as a nice to have, opposed to good to have, where there is no connection of how conservation measures can drive success in a wholesome way, right? So it's not just about, let's go back to 2014, changing your water tank to more efficient, changing your fixtures to more efficient, trying to be BOMA best. I always joke about it, but, trying to get to the lead, whatever it was at that point. I do feel as a humans, we need some kind of a like guidance or framework.
Hmm.
But then what happened is a lot of people who came into a profession from a typical environmentalist background um, don't understand how things are built, that there is always connection to the cost. In Europe, things are done differently because things start from, I want to build net zero, and then we're going to figure out how much it's going to cost, versus in North America is like, how much this is going to cost to be a net zero, which is very different connotation. It's almost like setting yourself up for a failure.
Wow.
Um, Valuations are very different. You talk to any real estate professional, they say, how do I put a value, a dollar amount to a net zero? Well, you don't. No one still knows how much does it cost. There's no historic precedent on a volume of building net zero to understand what's your return on investment. And real estate development is all about value creation over time, return on investment. What's my ROI, right?
Yep.
And those are the first questions that we get from clients. I can tell you 100% for anyone going into sustainability, you're only good if you know how to connect the dollar amount to performance. And it's impossible. Like it's impossible to say the net zero building is going to be 20 or 30% more. Are you building a tower? Are you building something, some kind of a campus type of building? What kind of a mechanical systems are you putting in? How much IoT are you putting into a building? To what kind of a controls do you have to control those systems? Envelope is so understated in net zero. How much insulation
Absolutely.
do you have?
Yeah.
And then you have a
R value, the
procurement,
material.
and then
Absolutely.
you have a procurement and value chain issues because procurement is the biggest problem when building net zero because those materials and those systems, they don't exist in all geographies. You know,
Yeah.
some geographies are really, really better. They nail it down. And I know when we were executing our to Megan building at that time, first of 15 retrofits for federal government of Canada, the glass was procured from Luxembourg, just
Wow.
because like that type of a glass, the type of a unit and that type of system only existed there, and it fit our budget. We could actually procure it, and we could actually do it. So it is very complex thing to do, to have like a framework and say, yes, there are things that you need to look at the bits and pieces, you know, like where is your energy coming from and how is your energy and how you're going to make a sustainable energy, right? You can have a tower, you can have a windmill, but where do they exist? Do they exist in a zero lot line? You have to be available to kind of like see your surrounding, what type of materials, which geography, which regulation. So I'm totally against this whole like, you know, build the framework, tell me what it is, or my favorite is aftermath. I constantly keep like getting requests from friends. It's like, oh, we're trying to build this net zero, but we are pushing geothermal. Can you help us? And I'm like, do you think that only that is what makes a net zero building? Yay, you have a geothermal in your building. That doesn't make it net zero.
Fix the entire ecosystem. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
holistic interdisciplinary approach to building something net zero from a scratch, and it's a Jenga. So if you remove one piece, everything falls apart. So
Wow.
you cannot do value engineering with net zero, really. It doesn't work. Whatever it's okay to say, I want to strive to it and say net zero like, or I want to try to, if I take a portfolio of 10 buildings, by the 10th, I want to be net zero. But, you know, having this ambitious goals that every building is going to be net zero, that's just setting yourself up for a failure.
Absolutely. That's such valuable information, especially for people getting into the industry. There's so many moving parts, but you can't just slap on, a tag and say, hey, just because we have geothermal now we're net zero. It's like a Jenga block, like Jelena explained. You have to make sure that each piece fits well with the other, and there's an overall strategy. And you may not achieve it right away, but maybe later down the road. So it's more like a journey that and it makes sense because in prop tech, build tech, construction tech, this is exactly part of the reasoning behind uh, bringing in technology solutions, because driving towards carbon neutrality and net zero is a huge practice on its own, and there's consulting behind it. So, at what point, especially when you were leading at Dialogue and also Morrison Hershfield, which is now Stantec, you became head of new construction. What at, where along that journey did you realize that hey, dude, there's a lot happening here, but there has to be more disruption in the industry. We would love to hear about that.
It was really 2016. We got these two amazing projects. And I'm not going to say which other one is, but it's a transportation project. And it was real that there is really a better way to build. The problem is not a project management, it's process and people management. And then Art and Megan building, or so-called 2555 St. Clair, was really a highlight of how all the stakeholders in the process don't understand is like, what does it take to build? net zero, towards net zero, strive towards it. And I left Morrison Herschel to found this like a new enterprise, which would really help stakeholders, like, and clients to build end to end from a strategy, at ESG at that time, whatever you wanted needed to be, green certifications to really nuts and bolts and to implement it. And it was also, my aspirations. Okay, I want more. I need more. We need to help each and every, we need to share this knowledge that we have, right? And then the next level was, okay, now let's put it all together. Let's put the sustainability piece. Let's put process and people piece. Um, when COVID hit, it was evident that industry is going to move towards the cloud technologies. Before that, we were all on-prem. A VPN didn't exist. Early days of COVID were horrible, horrendous to work online. And it was the right place, right time to start thinking about like how to utilize AI to move things forward, but now on an even bigger scale, right? So that's kind of where I'm at now.
Oh, nice, perfect. You brought us there to the promised land. So, Jelena, why don't we hear more about where you are now, what you're what you're building, and where you want to take it?
So, so as I said, aspiration started from it was. I always say that this is bringing together personal frustration of probably 150 people who, same like me, um, seeing that there is a better way to do things, to execute on it. Market being completely unsustainable. You started it with. We have affordability, global affordability crisis. We have dilapidating infrastructure, really, that we cannot build fast enough. We have a very high digital adoption that we don't have infrastructure for. Just the fact that if we continue using tools like OpenAI or advancing them, we need 6 gigawatts of energy, which means like, you need like a little country to to feed the monster of just learning more as humans wanted to learn more and bring it together. And I decided to make an engine, a portfolio intelligence engine, to predict risk, accelerate delivery, and align capital for real estate infrastructure and energy assets. And it's really meant to kind of put everything together, in a one pot, mix it, and to make it easier for companies to build assets that are high performing, but constantly learn from something, to learn from their existing assets. Either you're, a big entity like Walmart, you have energy usages and everything your asset end, and now you want to build high-end distribution facility. Either you're a pension fund who is investing a lot of money in different types of assets, mostly multifamily, residential. You want to build high-end industrial, because we're going to need a lot of industrial and process facilities to meet the semiconductor and robotics demands. It's really meant to bring all teams together. It's a people problem. We all come from a one experience, and that's what we bring to fall. But what if you can bring everything to fall that you knew, to bring finance and sustainability together? And the most important thing is, like, when I had this idea and I had this vision, first time when I said it out loud, I've been called crazy because someone said, "Oh, you're gonna just make a process completely linear. This is not a linear process." And I said, "No, I'm not gonna make it linear, but with AI it's so easy, and machine learning, because you can triangulate three most important things. And that is time, that is materials and resources, and that is money." Right? And those are the three things that you need to kind of, those are the three things that one can live without the other one. And that's what we are doing now. We're on our journey. Um, Same like you, we met at the Smart Cities Conference, which was very excited. We got selected out of 250 startups to present. And yeah, it's a very interesting time to actually be at this intersection in my life where you continue to learn.
I love it because it's so important for everyone watching right now to understand that, hey, sometimes life, comes back full circle, and it can't be truer for anyone more than Jelena, because I know this, and maybe you want to touch upon this. She actually started in tech originally, and now you're coming back and you're bringing the solutions and all of that experience to the table. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, it's like I actually went to in Europe back in the day. We had these specialty high schools, so I went to high school, which is like a college degree here. I'm a technician in automated processes and automation and processes. I always joke that it's like, when I studied telecommunications, my parents begged me not to quit because at that time you would get this like, snazzy job at Nokia, which was, or Sony Ericsson, which was at the peak of power because telecommunications were big, internet was just exploding. But yeah, I always wanted to build like a physical things. We knew that I'm gonna be an engineer. I played too much with Lego when I was a kid. My mom said, I'm giving this one to the father. The second one is going to be mine. She's she's yours. But yeah, it's really funny because even now talking to my dad, who's an 83-year-old man, and we usually just do shop talk when I go home, which drives my, of course, mom mad, right? And it before I was ashamed of that past. Even when I moved to Canada, I had to remove it from my resume because, in architecture, everyone wants younger and better, and we think that the younger people have better ideas. I will tell you that I struggled really, really hard when I started this because I'm at the particular age in my life where people usually think about slowing down. But when you look at it through entrepreneurship, the best solutions came out of the mature individuals. Vera Vang, you have it like so many of these entrepreneurs who started their careers later in their life, which means that you bring this wealth of experience to the table. And it requires a lot of courage to just jump off a cliff and say, what's the worst that it can happen? We're going to give it a try because it's needed. It's not just me that I'm saying this. And then putting those two monsters together that they shouldn't exist, because I constantly get from my business partner, who's a typical tech guy, is that, oh, but this is different industry. And I'm like, industries are very similar. In tech, you build a product, you ship a product. In architecture, when you're building a skyscraper, you're not building, skyscraper that is going to be obsolete for 20 years. You're not building a transportation. Well, that's not a good example. You're not building a data center that is going to be obsolete. You're using cutting edge technologies. You're always on a cutting edge, right? So there are actually many similarities that you can put together in the same thing. And I'm actually having probably the most fun in my life than ever.
I love it. I love it. It's really exciting. Well, you know what? The good news is you don't have to hide that anymore. You wear it on your sleeve. Be proud of it because you're gonna help solve problems in this country, and we're looking forward to that. We need more leaders like you, and for people that are watching this, especially students, like learn from this. There's so much friction we go through in life. We're like, okay, is this right for my career? Is that right for my career? But in the end, it's about solving problems. It's about bringing those solutions to the table that we've attained throughout our career, throughout our life, and we can learn from each other's experiences. And that's the real reason why it's so important to talk and engage with each other. Because if we don't listen to each other, we don't understand why certain things are the way they are and how we can improve them. What better person or what better way to learn about how we can make our cities better than an architect or an urban planner or an engineer. So this was an opportunity for me to learn from you. Um, as we wrap this up, what is some advice that you would love to share for the next generation, especially as we move also into a phase in our lives where we want to mentor more?
Yeah, I think transfer of knowledge really needs to happen. You will see exodus of people who are professionals who are accomplished and who want to leave the profession. And I think mentoring wasn't really part of at least my generation. I'm a Gen X, and being mentored by boomers, I had a really good leaders that I was surrounded by, but mentorship wasn't something that we gravitated to. For younger generations, it's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. There is no shortcut. It's really, if you want to learn something, there's a 10,000 hours, but there is also volume of work that you do and diversity of work. Don't get stuck in one thing. Just because your degrees say that you're an architect and engineer, you can do whatever you want. Now, you're not going to be an original. It's done before. You're not going to be a part of the herd. You're going to have to walk the misfit path, which is very difficult, but it's going to have a life with a purpose rather than have a life of an education that you attained when you were very young and you still didn't know what you want to be when you're going to want to grow up, right? And be fearless about it, really. I always say I work with a lot of younger folks who think that my career is aspirational or something like that, and I don't think so. But I always say, write the resume that you want. And I had really great mentor, personal mentor, not professional, but personal mentor. My girlfriend, she's amazing. She's my rock. She's my big sister, right? And you write the resume that you want, not resume that the market needs. Don't bend to the market, right? Like you go and do the things that you need in order to be somewhere 5, 10, 15 years from now, right? Because you cannot learn, it takes you a year and a half to learn something about the company where you're at. It takes you another year and a half to acquire a certain skill set, right? So if you want to be like Liam Neeson from Taken, that didn't just happen overnight. If you want to have a particular skill set, just work on it, right? And really dedicate yourself to that. Another advice for younger people coming on the market is that think about your career as a journey. Earlier in career, you want to get as many specialities, but there's really valuable thing of being a generalist later in your life. If you come to a certain age and you acquire accounting, HR, IT, operational skills of business, you understand how businesses are run, but then you have this a technical expertise and subject matter expertise in one hand. It really helps you down the road if you decide to go down the entrepreneurship pathway, because you will understand what does it take to set up a business, to run a profitable enterprise, and utilize your subject matter expertise at the same time.
That's absolutely amazing. What excellent advice. You don't understand how many people are going to benefit from this. It's absolutely huge, Jelena. And what's even more exciting for anybody watching this, myself definitely included, is that you're bringing all of that energy and that knowledge now, and you're building something to actually help solve some serious problems. So honestly, kudos to you. I hope that everybody that learned from this, that got to benefit from this, hopefully we can reach out to you and applaud you for this, and hopefully support each other as we continue to scale solutions and technologies from Canada to the world. And I wish you so much success. I want to obviously be there throughout the journey, and cheer you on. But I'm just so happy we got to meet. And as Canadians, we met in Texas, like, so ironic. But thank you for being a friend. Thank you for being part of my network. And really excited to see how this evolves. So with that, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for this great opportunity to share my experience. And I'm looking forward to what's ahead of us and our journey together.
Absolutely. Let's get working on that Jenga together.
Yes, yes, let's Jenga it the hell out.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Elena.
Thank you, Raza.